This video will be me reviewing the Grandmasters of Season 12. If you are unaware of the Season 12 artifact mods, I would highly recommend watching my Season 12 artifact review video to get caught up because the artifact mods heavily changed how GMs work. I will use 3 factors to decide what is the best GM. Difficulty, basically how hard a GM is relative to the other GMs. Build diversity, basically how restrictive a GM is in regards to how diverse your build can be. This is heavily dependent on the seasonal mods. And flow. This is how the strike goes. Are there any abrupt stops or weird timing things that I have to deal with? Each category will be on the scale from 1 to 6, since there are all ranks relative to other GMs available and there are only 6 GMs each season. The GM with the highest cumulative score will be the best, and the one with the lowest will be the worst in my opinion for Season 12. First up, the new GMs. Glassway. The Glassway is the new strike in the IP. I posted the Disgrace, which is a remake of the Omnigul strike, and is definitely the hardest of all the GMs this season. The only reason I put this as the hardest GM is due to Wyverns. As I said in my GM completion of the Glassway, is that the Wyverns are basically tankier champions that can't be stunned. This is the hardest GM for Season 12. Moving on to build diversity, the major build requirements in this strike are these: Barrier and Overload champions, Arc and Solar Shields. However, these are very few solar shields, so that really frees up some elements to be using. Given the only overload weapons this season are auto rifles and scouts, and solar stasis grenades, I really feel like Divinity is sort of locked in on this strike, given that you will need an arc weapon and an extremely consistent overload weapon. Then we need anti-barrier weapons. Preferably 2 people would have these. The anti-barrier weapons this season are pulse rifles and SMGs, or Ariana's Vow. Either of those weapons are good options, so there you go. The flow of this strike is probably the best of any Destiny 2 strike, between the 2 stasis boss rooms and the Shank room, but all that comes to a halt at the boss room, having to take your time to damage the boss using guerrilla-style warfare to pot shots at the boss while it can easily 2-shot you. Glassway gets a 615. The Disgraced. The Disgraced is a refreshed version of the Omnigul strike from D1 with a slight twist to the boss room. Personally, I think this is fine, but as far as difficulty goes, I would probably say this was the easiest strike this season. That doesn't mean it's a bad strike. In fact, this is one of the most fun GMs in my opinion. However, that may be skewed a bit due to the Hive. This is the easiest GM for Season 12. As far as builds, the first time I ran this, I was using Top Tree Solar Warlock with Thorn and Necrotic Grip. There are Barrier Knights, Servitors, and Unstoppable Ogres. However, there are very few Ogres in the strike, and the Knights are typically far away, so this sort of pushes you toward only using Pulse Rifles or Ariana's Vow for the Knights. As far as the shields go, the only major one is the boss has a Solar Shield, so it's essential to use a weapon with Solar rather than relying on abilities, so this sort of restricts your loadout in that way. The flow of this strike starts out very slow, having a large room with little line of sight and having to deal with many units that rush you or are invulnerable due to the barrier servitors. Once you get past the initial room, the strike really opens up with large rooms and areas to fall back until you get to the boss room, where this reverts to a small close quarter area for the remainder of the fight. The Disgrace gets a 162. And now for the old GMs. Since these have been in the game for a while and most of them already have been GMs, I'm just going to give a quick overview of them with their score rather than an in-depth review. Broodhold, second easiest GM. Boss room is fast-paced and requires communication. Solar and Arc Shields, Anti-Barrier Knights, and Unstoppable Ogres. Allows for Unstoppable Hand Cannon Shotguns or Leviathan's Breath, and for Anti-Barrier Pulse, SMG, and Ariana's. Very open builds due to the difficulty and good selection of weapons available. Very fast flow. The boss should have been more present throughout the strike to really play with the 2 bosses' abilities. Broodhold gets a 254. Inverted Spire, third easiest difficulty. Boss is easy, drill encounters hard, void and arc shields. Anti-barrier and unstoppable allows for pulses and SMGs for barriers and hand cannons. Shotguns or Leviathan's Breath for unstoppables. Each encounter feels like a separate encounter, so it actually has a good flow. Inverted Spire gets a 326. Scarlet Keep, third hardest, very little cover in boss room and many champions and shields, plus big knockup is big knockup. Unstoppable and barrier with solar and arc shields allows for pulses, SMGs, and Arianas for anti-barrier, while hand cannon, shotguns, and Levy's Breath for unstoppables. The strike is extremely slow-paced and has 3 encounters that require you to stay in one area for long periods of time. Worst flow of all GMs. Scarlet Keep gets a 431. Exodus Crash, second hardest, boss room is electrifying, make sure to wear your rubber boots and deal with the champions. Overload and barrier champions with a hint of arc and void shields. Overload weapons this season include Divinity, Autos, Scouts, basically turns into an auto-lock Divinity here. For barrier champions, we got Pulses, SMGs, and Arianas. Both Pulses and SMG are good here. As many encounters or close encounters, you'll want to be using SMGs. Flow is terrible. 60% of the strike is public spaces that were never designed to have all the modifiers active that are active in GMs. Exodus Crash gets a 543. I hope you like watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like up. If you want to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button with the notification bells turned on. Thanks for watching.